Welcome back to the Deep Digger Sports Pod. I'm your host, Drew. My other host, right over there.
What's up? It's D. Good to see you again. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Drop some comments below. Let us know your thoughts because we're talking NFL ball today, baby.
Yeah, as we're recording this, Texans are blowing out the Cowboys, but I kind of want to start where we were just talking off camera. The Broncos blowing out the Falcons this week. How real is Bo Nix and this Denver team led by Sean Payton? And is the fall off for the Falcons leading to Penix kind of taking over this season?
I don't think that you can't. Well, to answer the last question first, we'll work backwards from here. I don't think the Falcons had a game plan for this. I don't think they had a game plan for, okay, we're going to sign Kirk Cousins for all this money, and then we're also going to draft a first round quarterback. And they kind of had to justify it to their owner on the draft day. And they're like, okay, hey, like you've seen the video of them like, oh, explaining this, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up to allocate all of these resources into one position. And I get that it's the most important position in all of sports franchises, but at the end of the day, you paid Kirk Cousins all this money. You have to roll with Kirk Cousins. There's no way you're going to get out of this contract. I don't think you can then move off of him and go to Michael Penix just because you wasted a first round pick on him. Realistically, you you mismanaged it. I think realistically, what you should have done is just done something, drafted something that you could have used this year, a pass rusher, another wide receiver, even going and getting a tight like just something to help you out this season. Even if you just wasted it on meat and potatoes, a offensive or defensive lineman, that would have helped a ton. Just something that would have helped to put you over the edge. Because I mean, we've seen it earlier in the season. This Falcon team can be good when they are clicking on all cylinders. And I think this is a team with a fresh head coach. Yeah, they're going to have a little bit of slumps at time. If they can bounce back, we see what their top end is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I hate the argument that's used for them taking Penix of like when you like the guy, you got to take him because you never know when you're getting another crack at it. And I think it's the right idea, but the wrong guy. Because Penix is a guy that should be starting right now. He's like 26 years old as a rookie. You need to get as much mileage out of him as you can and get him up to speed quickly. So if you're going to make that move for a first round quarterback, you got to look at what you have. You signed Kirk Cousins to a 3-year deal. Why are you getting the oldest quarterback in the draft? Go with the young guy or don't go with it at all, or trade Kirk Cousins and get him out of here and go with Penix. Like this move just didn't make sense to me, and it only made sense if one of them, those two quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins or Penix, are just so amazing that it nullified the fact that you wasted a first round pick. Like, and Kirk Cousins looked like that for a while because you're like, okay, well, Kirk's going to play great and he's going to play so good. Maybe we don't have to play Penix for 2 years, which then you're like, well, we take an L on the pick, but at least we have a quarterback who's balling. And if Penix looks great, you're like, well, it worked out. We can get off of Cousins in a year and a half or so and all that. But right now, you're in that middle ground of like, what do we do? And it sucks when you have Penix, who probably could be starting right now for any other team. Well, not any other team, but another quarterback needy team. And Bo Nix is over here playing amazing. He's putting up 4 touchdowns, putting up 300 yards. And then Jaden Daniels is looking great. Caleb Williams is almost winning games. Like,
Caleb Williams is a quarterback.
yeah, Drake May is looking pretty good. So it's the right ideology, but the wrong move to make based on the real facts you have in front of you.
Yeah, and then you're sitting there as the Falcons and you're looking at what your team could have been if you had just rolled with Michael Penix, and you see it with Bo Nix. It's the same guy pretty much. I know they have a little bit of different skill set. I think Penix is a little bit more athletic, if I'm going to be honest. But you look at it and you're like, okay, these are both guys that are older, that have a lot of like football under their belt, and you see, okay, we've got a couple of games under Bo Nix where he's really struggled, but after he's got out of that struggle, he's looked really good. And you like look at it and you're like, damn, if we would have just believed in ourselves in our draft process and been like, we are going to draft a quarterback, we would have, again, so much more resources allocated towards the rest of this roster build. Instead, now we have Kirk Cousins, and we're looking at, okay, well, we wasted this first round pick. And again, we did trade off here, and we did the worst of both worlds.
Yeah, and then Kirk Cousins probably sitting there thinking because if they would have just stuck to their guns, drafted Penix and rolled with him, Kirk Cousins probably reluctantly goes back to Minnesota, and it works out perfect because JJ McCarthy can't play for a year, and you have Kirk Cousins who knows the system, who he's looked great at times this season, and I don't know where Sam Darnold would end up, but maybe you could even have both. You could have Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold as the backup, but this really threw a wrench in Kirk Cousins' kind of hopes of a playoff run here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kirk Cousins would have found a starting job anyways. I think he would have been a guy that people would have still put bids in for. I mean, we've seen it again this year where if you are a starting quarterbacks do not hit the open market. And if you hit the open market, you're going to get a fat bag. Look, I mean, they paid him even though he was coming off of a major injury and he's an aging quarterback. So I don't doubt that he would have got a bag from somewhere else. I don't know if he necessarily would have gone back to Minnesota because I think Minnesota was already like, okay, we've kind of lost out on that. Like, we're just going to move forward with our plan here.
Well, let's talk about another team who's hoping to get into the playoff mix here. The Colts beat the Jets. Anthony Richardson, after getting benched, he comes back 20 for 30, 272 yards and a touchdown, no picks, and he ran for 2 touchdowns. The Jets, this has to be the nail in the coffin. I like should we just not talk Jets anymore for the rest of the season because season's over. Aaron Rodgers is not the guy. He has a worse winning percentage as a quarterback for the Jets than Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold. Can we just put a rest of the Jets?
Yeah, I've been ready to not talk about the Jets. Like, I don't like I don't like talking about bad teams. They are not even a fun bad team. It'd be different if they were like super fun to watch because it's chaotic. It's just not fun to me like to talk about the Jets, to watch the Jets. I'm done with them this season. We can go ahead and put that in a box. I will talk about them again in the off season because it's going to be interesting to see how it moves. It's almost NBA-ish where you don't really watch the regular season. Their entertainment comes in the off season. I'm ready to do that already. You know what I mean? Because then what happens with Aaron Rodgers? Is Devontae Adams going to stay there? Is he going to be like, okay, you know what? I was a package deal with Aaron. I'm ready to move again. Or who's going to be this head coach if Aaron Rodgers does decide to stay, or the organization is like, hey, we want you. You're going to be the guy choosing the next head coach. I'm more interested in that. They don't play football well. I'm ready to move off of them.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of amazing how they're finding ways to lose games this season. Just like you look at the talent they have on the roster and you look at the situations they're in, and you're like, okay, yeah, this I'm gonna bet on them, maybe live bet that they're gonna win this game, and all of a sudden they fall apart and they're getting scored on with 40 seconds left, and you're like, why did I bet on the Jets again? Because of course they're gonna look like they're gonna act like they're a winning team. They're gonna have they're gonna be like, oh yeah, we're putting it together, it's fine, we'll figure it out at a certain point. But they just keep falling apart at end of the game, and it's crazy how much they're losing with a team on paper that should be great.
Yeah, that's the one thing I just don't understand all the talent that they had, why it just doesn't work. I understand what the thought process like the excuse was last year. We don't have a viable quarterback. That way, like so that makes our defense look bad because they're on the field all the time. And we gave them all a pass. We gave the New York Jets defense a pass. We were like, hey, we understand that you're on the field all the time. It's hard to stay motivated when you know your team's just not going to score points. But that excuse should be mitigated. You have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback now, and the defense still looks bad. Guys like Sauce Gardner are just looking terrible. And I don't know if it's just a complete regression of this organization to just be like, all right, we're going to go back to square one, or if guys are just unmotivated because of the leadership skills and there not being an actual head coach in place.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is the head coach as far
That's
as
true.
they're concerned. Let's talk a little bit about the Bears losing another tough one. They line up for the field goal, gets blocked, and Eberflus after the game was saying he thought this should have been a penalty for them lining up over the center on that block field goal. Everyone's just like trashing him, like he's trying not to take the blame, but listen, it's time. Like Eberflus is not a great head coach for the Chicago Bears team. Caleb Williams is underperforming. The whole team's underperforming. This is bad. They should have, looking back, got a different head coach, right?
100%, they should have. I mean, you've seen what he had to offer the last few years. You've gotten a good look at him. It's not like it's like the interim coach thing where you only had like 5 to 7 games like Antonio Pierce with the Las Vegas Raiders, where it's like, okay, we see kind of what it could be, but we need to actually give this guy a shot. No, you knew with Eberflus that he was a bad coach. He was a bad fit. He probably is a good defensive coordinator, but we don't need to risk our future, which we are because we're bringing in a number one pick quarterback. We need everything to go perfectly. And instead, you just kept a guy just because you wanted status quo. Like, it doesn't make sense that you kept a defensive guy that you knew was a bad coach, bad head coach. He's probably a good coordinator again, but bad head coach just because. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and I seen some guy do a video where he was breaking down like this just continues the cycle for the Chicago Bears over a decade, I think, where the head coach, GM, and quarterback have not been like simultaneously signed in the offseason. Like it's always been someone taking over someone else's guy, them cutting bait with the quarterback, and then choosing their guy, getting fired. The next guy inherits, and it's just continuing that. I think maybe Justin Fields, one quarterback in the past like 10 years, kind of broke that cycle, but we saw how that worked out. But it's just going to keep continuing. And now Caleb Williams, he knows already, well, I'm going to have to learn a new system. I'm going to go through another head coach right now. And if they can't pull it together, they're going to go through another head coach because there's no way they can give up on the hype that was Caleb Williams within 3, 4, 5 years.
I mean, you can. I mean, realistically, this is such a microwave league where you have to get results quickly. I mean, you can move off of him, of course. I mean, we're seeing just with the Bryce Young that the Panthers were ready to move off of him, and we didn't even get to talk about Anthony Richardson. But we'll talk about that. We'll bring that up. We'll go back around on it. But yeah, I think this is such a microwave league with these guys, and they're kind of at a disadvantage now because so many more quarterbacks are coming out with years under their belt. I know this isn't a good draft class coming up, but you've got to think like they're always looking towards the future. And with a guy like Caleb Williams, who is not going to be, I don't know if Ryan Poles stays at GM for the Chicago Bears, but he's not going to be the head coach's guy. And that makes a big difference when you're like, okay, I look at Brian Flores. Brian Flores hated Tua Tagovailoa, and he was like, hey, I don't like this guy. I don't know why you're forcing me to take this guy. I will do it, but I will hate it. And eventually it came down to the Miami Dolphins making a decision. Do we roll with the coach or do we roll with the player? And they chose the player. And so you're just setting things up for a conflict like that when you have such a high profile guy like Caleb Williams and you're bringing in a guy at head coach, whoever it's going to be moving forward, who didn't pick him, who did not draft him. It just sets up for disarray and disharmony. And I think we've seen it with the 49ers when Kyle Shanahan came in. He was like, I want to have a say as far as who we're choosing at GM, and we're going to be a package deal because we want to make sure that we're in line here together. And it's pretty similar because the quarterback is another important piece of this whole organization. You got to make sure they're aligned.
Yeah, and someone who we want to talk about who's set up their quarterback for success, the Detroit Lions with Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. You were telling me the other day, you think Dan Campbell is making a push to try to get Jared Goff in the MVP conversation because they're throwing late in this blowout game, and they do. I think they're the best team in football right now. They are the best team in the league. They're blowing teams out like crazy. They have everything going for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying that I think that they are making a push for MVP with Jared Goff just because, I mean, why would you be running up the score like this? And this isn't just one game. They've done it multiple times throughout this season where it's like, all right, well, this team is dead in the water. Hey, Dan, let's go ahead and throw in the backups. And it's like, no, I'm going to go ahead and keep throwing the ball with Jared. We're going to run up the score. We're going to put up numbers. And it's like a big FU to the rest of the league. Like we're the big dogs here. And I think because he knows this is the last hurrah with Ben Johnson, with the DC, this is the last like time this coaching staff is going to be together. I think he wants to try to win offensive coordinator of the year, defensive coordinator of the year, get an MVP quarterback, and then make a Super Bowl run. If they can do that, Dan Campbell can kick his feet up and be like, I'm a made man for the rest of my coaching tenure here.
Yeah, and I think you throw in coach of the year for Dan Campbell, and I think they have to be the favorite right now. Like we just saw the Chiefs lose to the Bills, and they've been teetering on losing games all season. What other team can you see kind of competing? I mean, just in the NFC, I can't see another team really taking on the Lions. And then looking to the AFC, Chiefs are the main thing. Can the Bills really perform in playoffs? Can the Ravens beat anyone who's actually good? They just lost to the Steelers. Like I don't, and the Bengals are out of the question. The Dolphins are out of the question. Like I don't see who could take this torch right now from the Lions as the favorite for the Super Bowl.
It might be the Steelers, realistically. I mean, I know they're not going to be the favorite gambling, but that is a team I could see beating this Detroit Lions team just because they have kind of all the pieces to match. They also have a head coach that's been there, that's done that, that's not going to back down from Dan Campbell, that will match his energy. So that's a team that I could see being like a very competitive matchup for the Detroit Lions. But yeah, you're right. I don't see there being a clear favorite other than the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, well, let's just move on to the Steelers because they beat the Ravens. They looked great. I mean, there was some mistake by Russ throwing a pick in the end zone, but the defense just keeps on coming out and making plays for them. The offense is doing just enough, and I think after that interception, Russ kind of settled back down and was like, "Okay, we play the style where we kick field goals, we don't make mistakes, and we win the game with defense." And he settled right back into that. I was surprised kind of that Lamar and this Ravens team couldn't really beat another good team in the AFC like that.
Yeah, and I think it's always weird for the Baltimore Ravens. I know that they are a good team. I know I've seen it. I see it on paper. I know that they're a good team. I don't trust them. I just don't trust them. If I'm like, okay, it's a big game, it's a primetime game between the Baltimore Ravens and X team. I'm like, okay, I don't think the Baltimore Ravens going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and hedge this bet. I'm going to go with the other team. If it's the playoffs, I've told you before. I don't care what the Baltimore Ravens do in the regular season. I need to see it in the playoffs. They just haven't showed up to the playoffs. I mean, multiple like times they've gone to the playoffs and it's just been nothing. They don't get off the bus. And so I don't know what mental block they have. I don't know what John Harbaugh needs to do to kick it into gear for this team to really understand, hey, we need to perform when the stakes are the highest, but they need to do something to get them over the hump here.
Yeah, and right now it's the Steelers division to lose, and they're looking great right now. Everything they're dictating the style of play that is going on in each of these games, and it's exactly what they want, and that's what they're getting from these opposing teams.
And honestly, I'm not even mad at the Russ pick. Like, I think that is you got to take the bad with the good on this. And if Russell Wilson is going to throw up 50-50 balls and be like, hey, I'm going to trust my guys to go out there and make a play, you got to just go ahead and let him do it. And I know it was like a bad pass. Technically, it was a bad pass, but you got to be fine with it and be like, okay, just fine. Our defense is going to bail us out here, but at least I threw it. At least my guys know that I will take a chance with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the Bills and Chiefs, who are also the main contenders in the AFC, Bills finally beat the Chiefs, but it was a lot closer than I expected going into this game. And the Chiefs, I honestly don't feel much moved by this game for the Bills because the Chiefs haven't looked great all season. And I would have expected the Bills like make a statement here, blow them out, do something. And it was just too close for comfort for me to be like, yeah, the Bills, they're gonna make the Super Bowl over the Chiefs this season.
Yeah, the Bills, I just need them to take a little bit off of Josh Allen. Let's actually run when
They'll
it comes down
never
to the
do it.
playoff.
They'll never do it. They want Josh Allen hero ball in the toughest, biggest moments. They will forget about their run game and they will play Josh Allen hero ball. That's just them.
I just don't understand why they do that. I don't know if it's a Josh Allen thing where he shrugs them off and is like, "Hey, no, don't worry, I got it." James Cook, go ahead and sit down, bro. Like, I'll take it from here. It's like just let the running backs run the ball. Like, what do we do? We are the Buffalo Bills. We're playing in the middle of a fucking snowstorm. Why are we airing it out 50 times a game in the playoffs? Like, let's just run the rock. Let's take control of this game. We have a really good defense. And then when we need to go over the top, we know we have a guy with a cannon of an arm, and it's going to surprise the other team because we've been running it so much. I don't understand this. Like, all right, we're the Buffalo Bills. We're hard nosed. We play really good. Let's go ahead and we're gonna play. We're gonna play spread. Don't worry about it. We'll play spread. We'll play air raid. And it's like, what are we doing here?
That's what's so frustrating with the Bills in these big games. Like, yes, they won. They won on Josh Allen running the ball, but it could make life so much easier if they just feed James Cook, who's an amazing back. He had 9 carries in this game and 2 of them for touchdowns. So give James Cook the ball. Like, this is why you lose in the last season. This is why you lost the playoffs, because you just forgot about your run game. You have an amazing back here. You have actually a pretty good stable of backs now with Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. Like, take it off of Josh Allen's plate. I know the flash is there. We want him to be fucking Super Bowl MVP. We want to look amazing and beat Mahomes. The reason why Mahomes wins is because he doesn't need to be the superstar. He's relying on his defense. He's checking the ball down. He's like the most checked down quarterback in the league right now, and it's working. So I don't see why they just continuously are like, you know what hasn't worked for us? Josh Allen playing hero ball. You know what we should do? Josh Allen playing hero ball. Like,
Yeah, and
maybe,
it's like, okay,
yeah.
you know what's cool? Winning is cool. Then all like the recognition will come. Like you don't need to force feed it. And I like, and again, Josh is a made man. He's already had the contract. They understand what he can do. Everyone knows that he's a top tier quarterback. You don't need to go out there and prove anything. You just need to go out there and win. And you have the team to do it. Like these past few years, they've had the team to do it. I just don't know why they continue to like bang their head against this rock that we are going to throw it X amount of times because we want to. Not even a good reason, just because. What do you want to do? I don't know. Felt like it.
Did you see anything about this Bengals Chargers game? Because Chargers were up, I believe, 21 points. Bengals come all the way back, and within the last 2 minutes, I think there was 4 or 5 possession changes and 2 missed field goals. I think it was 2 missed field goals by the Bengals. After the game, Jamar Chase is going off about the kicker and saying like, I don't know, he should make those. He's getting paid to make those. And also he's like, that's the coach's decision that he's deciding to, go out there and kick the ball. So they're definitely showing their frustration. Joe Burrow said this is the most frustrating year as a pro. He's putting up amazing numbers, just not wins. Jamar Chase is putting up numbers, just not wins. Is Zach Taylor really losing this locker room right now?
I mean, it's tough to build a good roster when you pay these guys. You know what I mean? And that's why it's so coveted to try to win when you have a rookie quarterback because of that deal they have. And now you've paid Jamar Chase, you've paid Joe Burrow, and you have a lot less resources than you had before. And so the roster just isn't as filled out as it was. But realistically, they still have a ton of weapons. They should be able to go out there and put up numbers. And it is on the more of on the defensive side than anything. And I just don't know. Like that is going to come from the draft, and you just have to wait. But I just don't. The window's closing.
Yeah, and then especially that they let Joe Mixon walk away and he's looking amazing in Houston. I think they wasted so much time trying to make Zach Moss the guy this season. He just wasn't effective. And clearly Chase Brown was more explosive, getting more he was getting more production. And I think Zach Moss getting hurt was actually amazing for this team because Chase Brown got to step in and be the guy. And that gave them somewhat of a run game. But yeah, their offense we know can put up points, but can their defense keep them in it? It hasn't been the case. And then the kicker now is supposed to be a great kicker. Evan McPherson, he was like amazing his rookie year, and now he's missing 2 field goals to win you these games. Yeah, there's nowhere for them to go right now other than keep playing and see if you can win 6 in a row.
Yeah, and I don't think the AFC. I mean, I know the AFC is not that great this year, so I don't know if they're dead or not. I will have to check the standings after everything kind of falls. I know that the Texans are blowing out, winning a blowout in their game, so we'll see how this kind of falls with the rest of the structure. But I just don't know. Midseason, we're already past the trade deadline. what can you do as far as shaping this? You just got to roll with what you have right now. You got to make chicken salad out of, you know what I mean? Chicken. But
Chicken salad out of chicken. Yeah.
well, my wife was like, "I heard you recording the other day. You need to not swear as much." So I'm trying to tone it back.
I don't think we started this whole video.
Jeepers, mister.
All right.
But
The last game I want to talk about here, we get into actually their projection for the rest of the season too. The 49ers lose another close game at the end of the game, blow a fourth quarter lead to the Seahawks. How did they lose this game? This was crazy. I mean, from the point when Geno Smith throws that interception to them losing the game, I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
and this has been the story the entire season for this San Francisco 49ers team. It is, we feel good. We have the game wrapped up. Oh, wait. No. Can they come back? Oh, no. Oh, no. They came back. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, we've absolutely lost the division. Like, we're dead last in the NFC West. I don't know if this team can rebound like everyone was expecting them to. Just because they have the vets, they have the coaching, everything should be there, and it's just not clicking the way it's supposed to click. I'm not sure what is off this season. I know they just fired their defensive coordinator this past off season. He was a one and done. They've taken a huge step back defensively. They just can't finish games. They can't finish tackles. I just don't know what the answers are moving forward with this San Francisco 49ers team. I was feeling like, okay, they're coming off a bye. They have a lot of pieces now that they didn't have before, or they coming off the bye before. We've seen Christian McCaffrey come back and look good, had a lot of usage. We're getting all these guys back, but then George Kittle's hurt. Oh, that's going to be the crutch that they're going to use. Oh, because we didn't have Kittle, we didn't have our main blocker, we didn't have this guy that does all X, Y, and Z. You have a bunch of other stuff there, though. They should have went out and closed this game. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and let's face it, the 49ers this year are an at best average team with extraordinary expectations, and we're seeing Kyle Shanahan is not this offensive guru that he's been known for. Like the defense is, how many games this season has he been out coached by defenses with a guy who's supposed to be one of the best offensive play callers in the league? Like I think like Minnesota this game, the Rams, like he is getting out coached this season, and for some reason, I don't know if it's the personnel, I don't know if it's Brock Purdy regressing, I don't know if it's just Kyle isn't really adapting, but something is not going on with this offensive play calls, especially in the red zone. We keep seeing it. And looking forward, we got the Niners play the Packers. That's probably a loss, I'd say. The Bills, that's probably a loss. The Bears, like I don't even know if this team could beat the Bears right now, because the Bears, yes, they've lost 2 weeks in a row, but they should have beat the Packers this week.
I think they beat the Bears. I don't know what to tell you, but I'm going to go ahead and chalk that up as a win. But I understand where you're coming.
I can't put any for sure wins for, I want to say, the rest of the season. Yeah, the Bears, the Rams, Dolphins probably a for sure win. Lions, Cardinals. Dolphins are the only one I feel confident about. And even then, maybe Tua gets hot. Maybe Waddle and Tyreek Hill go crazy. But other than that, like I don't see them winning 10, 11 games this year anymore to make the playoffs.
I just don't know how this team took such a huge step back when your coach is supposed to be this high-flying offensive guru. You brought in a defensive coordinator because, hey, last guy wasn't cutting it. We're going to have a guy that's a much better guy that we feel really good about, and you take a step back. This quarterback that was supposed to be like, okay, the next big thing isn't really living up to it, and we just can't score touchdowns. We need to put touchdowns up. We can't score touchdowns. We can't finish drives. We can't finish games. We are not going to finish this season. That's the way it's trending. If we're looking at it as a microcosm, if we can't finish drives, then we can't finish games. If we can't finish games, we cannot finish on top this season.
And on top of all the struggles with the offense and the defense is definitely not as good this year. The special teams keep shooting you in both feet and the face. Like The special teams has ruined plenty of games for the 49ers this season.
Not just this season. Again, that is Kyle Shanahan, like classic. Mwah. He hates special teams. He doesn't care as long as it's like out of sight, out of mind until it ruins games, and it will. It happens every single year. I don't understand. Not to be so Kyle Shanahan negative, but how many times have the defense? How many seasons has the defense carried the offense? It's happened multiple seasons where it's like, okay, we don't really have that great of an offense, but it's because we're not running the full Shanahan offense. Just wait until we get the personnel. And now, when it's supposed to be a time where we're supposed to be putting up mad points, but hey, just because like, our defense isn't living up to the expectations, we're losing games. Like, what? Why can't the offense take over? Why does it always have to be on the defense's back that like, oh, we lost because of the defense? Why can't we blame the offense and the offensive coordinator, which is you, Kyle?
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything. Even the win last week, you left the game feeling, well, I don't feel great about this team still. They got the win, but man, this could have been a loss pretty easily, and then we're really spiraling. And I think they have to be spiraling right now. Like as confident as they could look and seem and say they are, the outlook for the rest of the season doesn't look good for them. Like I don't think they should feel like they're a good football team right now. Like they should be desperate going into every single one of these games right now. And Kyle needs to just any whatever he's been saving, unload it on in the playbook. Like unload all your best plays. You have to get in the end zone. You have to put up some points. And the defense, I don't know if they're gonna bring back Drake Greenlaw. He's gonna change everything or what, but they're just kind of depleted in the interior. Like the D line, it's not what we want it to be. The linebackers, because of the injuries, and then Ufunga, he wasn't the same, and now he's out. Like every level of this defense, other than the corners, has not really been what they wanted, and it you could see it on the field.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think every game is going to start being desperate because you can't start digging yourself into a hole that you can't get out of. And that's where it's trending right now. This is a 500 team. This is a team that is dead last in their division, and they are going to have to scrape and claw because the rest of this schedule is actually really tough moving forward. So good luck. I don't know what you have to do this week, but you have to figure it out, and you have to figure it out now. And that starts by going out and beating the Packers.
All right, well, that's all we got to complain about this week. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, and subscribe. We are going to see you every week for the NFL season and follow our college football stuff. So, peace.
All right. Later.